Hello everyone, and let's take a look at the Marauder and our Marauder 3.0 wish list. Now, what can we do? What could be done to improve the Marauder? Except, of course, deleting it from the game, removing it from the game. Yeah, that would work. That would work. I'd be happy with that. But no, I wouldn't actually. I mean, that's a terrible idea. Who would we laugh at then? Who would we blame for the wipes? Can't blame the Marauder. Who would we let die as a healer? Think about it. Imagine a raid with no Marauders in it. Can you imagine that? We'd actually have to heal people in that raid. We couldn't just let them die as a healer. You couldn't let them die. You couldn't let them tank things as a tank and not taunt the thing off them. You know, it's a funny thing to do is let them die. But anyway, we'll get on with this and we'll talk about the Marauder in 3.0. So the Marauder is losing its kind of unique status in 3.0 because every single class is getting some sort of raid-wide cooldown. This means that the Guardians are then going to share, I guess, Bloodthirst or Inspiration, I guess, because the Guardians are the Warriors and Knights, should we say, are getting a DPS increase cooldown. I think they increase your... what is it their buff does again? It increases your tech power? Force power, tech power, I think their buff is. Or is it the stats one? I can never remember. One of them, it's either one or the other. I think they're getting a stat increase. I think that's what it is. So every single class is getting a raid-wide cooldown. Whether this means the end of Bloodthirst, we don't know. I don't know. Because Bloodthirst was, you know, it was a reason to keep Marauders around, was the Bloodthirst, of course. That big raid cooldown that increased all damage and healing by 20% for a few seconds. You could only use it once, they did modify it, so it was always useful to have a Marauder in a raid. They were always they had that big DPS cooldown, and that's what kind of guaranteed them a place in the raid. They did decent, they do very good damage as well, but you know, that's what made the Marauder kind of front and center. Every single raid team needs a Marauder. Need at least one. They need at least one idiot in the group that we don't care about, and we bring him along because he has a cooldown that gives us a nice damage and healing buff. I guess that's the only time we like Marauders, although the amount of flashpoints I've been doing with my Merc where I'm screaming at the Marauder, Bloodthirst, come on, Bloodthirst. There's a lot of undergear tanks right now, and it's like, I've used all my cooldowns, just give me some Bloodthirst. Just so I can heal this tank. Come on, Marauders. So yeah, that's why I scream at the screen. But what can we do? What can we improve on the Marauder? Now, the big skill tree, or discipline, we'll call it now, that is in need of the most improvement is, of course, focus or rage. Focus, we'll talk about it in terms of focus as a sentinel, because I leveled with focus. I thought it was a decent spec. Right now, kind of doesn't really have a purpose in the game. It used to be the PvP spec until they changed the smash crit, the auto crit on smash, not working in PvP now. Now, a lot of people in PvP tend to roll with Carnage, just because Carnage has, you know, decent burst damage and it has some defensive capabilities. The one thing you don't use in PvP really, or you don't see it very often anyway, is a Watchman spec or Annihilation spec Marauder in PvP. You don't see them very often just because it has very low survivability. PvP is about damage output and also survivability. The longer you can survive, the more damage you can do, because you don't want to get killed very quickly. If you die quickly, you do no more damage. So PvP is always a balance between damage and survivability. That's why I always think the Guardian and the Juggernaut are better placed in PvP, because they have more survivability. Thus they get more things done, and you can defend objectives and you stay alive longer, and it's a better experience. But the Marauder, the big thing is, what can we do with focus? I'd like focus to be a kind of AoE cleave type spec. I think that would be a pretty decent spec. Again, it would be useful for leveling, to maybe have a bit more cleave, like maybe Blade Storm or Force Scream. Have a skill in that tree that turns that into a cleave ability. Can you imagine that? Like, you know, enhanced force scream or whatever, or force super scream or something like that, that's just gonna cleave all enemies in front of you. That would be pretty awesome for leveling, actually. It'd be pretty good in PvP, because if you're gonna take away the big crit smash, you should at least replace it with some more AoE and make it an AoE spec. What else could we give the Marauders? I would like something better at the top of that tree. I just think the it's a kind of slow you get. Can't remember what it does, but it kind of slows the target a little bit. It is a PvP one only. We don't really use it in PvE at all. But maybe give us something like, I don't know, some big AoE cooldown, maybe? Maybe we could summon a lightsaber that goes on the ground and spins really fast and just does damage to everything that's in that area. That would be kind of cool. Just throw a lightsaber at the ground and have it spin very fast. That would be kind of cool. You use the force to spin it really fast. Or maybe even giving them a summonable lightsabers. If you remember the end fight in KOTOR 2 where you fight Darth... Was it Darth Treya? You fight... It was Kreia. It was... What was her name? Kreia? I don't remember. Yeah, you fought her and she had the floating lightsabers that you fought. That was a cool concept, using the Force to use more lightsabers. Give Marauders more lightsabers. They would of course do the same amount of damage as your offhand saber in terms of stats. That's what I would have it as. I guess you could have it again with, I mean that would be kind of cool. It would be a cool visual effect, all of a sudden have like 4 lightsabers coming at you. Maybe they could even operate independently. You could just set them on a target. That would be a good dot, actually. It would be a good kind of dot to have on a target, is just have this lightsaber. Maybe make it targetable and you could fight it. Maybe that would be kind of cool for the Marauders to have. Maybe give that to all the Marauders, but augment it in focus so that we can summon multiple lightsabers and have those lightsabers go and attack. Because the Marauder is the ultimate lightsaber specialist, you know. They wield 2 lightsabers, of course, so you need to be quite a specialist to wield 2 lightsabers. It would be cool to have them wield more than 2 lightsabers. It is possible, you know, all things are possible when the Force is considered, you gotta remember that. So yeah, that would be it. I mean, what can we do for Watchmen? I would like a dot without a cooldown, so we can multi-dot a bit better. I mean, that's the only thing we really lack, is multi-dotting. We are a melee class, so it's not as convenient to do as, say, a sniper who can just throw a corrosive grenade, or a madness sorcerer who has their affliction. That's what it's called, affliction. I can't remember what it's called. Their affliction they have again. But the assassins, another melee class, they have a dot that they can use. They can multi-dot targets as well. So that's our big problem, because our dots tend to have a cooldown. Our cauterize has a cooldown. And what's that thing called? I can't remember what it's called again, because I haven't played Watchmen for a while. The thing that turns your melee attacks into dots. I guess you could argue you could use that for multi-dotting, because it gets like, what, 3 charges it's got? What is it, overcharged? It's not overcharged saber, that's the assassin one. Can't remember what it's called. It turns your attacks into dots. Turns your next like 2 melee attacks into dots. I guess you could use that for multi-dotting, but I would like to see something there just to give us a little multi-dotting, because, you know, it's the other specs have it, the other dot specs have it, and we are the only dot spec that doesn't have it, really, or doesn't have an effective means to do it. So I would like to see something of that nature would be nice. What about Watchmen? Not Watchmen. Combat. Combat's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to improve, because it is pretty decent, and they have made it more interesting. Maybe, I don't know, another DPS cooldown. Maybe a proc for gore to come off cooldown. Maybe another proc for gore. Maybe just make gore last longer. I know it's boring, but I guess we could make gore last longer. The other thing I'd like to discuss is, what about ditching focus as a DPS spec and giving Marauders a tank spec? Because let them live the dream. Let those Marauders, set them free and let them live the dream. A tanking Marauder would be funny. It'd be funny most of all. I mean, it would be quite fun. Maybe they're just a tank that focuses on dealing so much damage, and maybe give them things like crit So if they get a critical attack, it enhances their armor. And, you know, make them maybe a kind of almost like a sort of dodge tank, but they use their lightsaber, their 2 lightsabers as a kind of shield thing. It would be kind of interesting, an interesting concept to have a non-shield using tank that uses their lightsabers as a shield, because of course the best defense is a good offense. That is the Marauders motto generally. That should be the Marauders motto. Anyway, the Marauders motto is, of course, it wasn't me. Yeah, because who caused the wipe? And it's usually the Marauder that says it wasn't me that caused the wipe. Of course they did. We just blame you anyway. We don't care if it wasn't you that caused the wipe. We're just going to blame you anyway because, you know, they're easy to blame, the Marauders. And maybe, I don't know, because we got decent defensive cooldowns, we've got decent attacking abilities. I would like to see maybe Force Leap's cooldown lowered, just as a passive thing, because we'll probably get the utility will be Force Leap not requiring any range. That will probably be in the utilities, I guess, for all the trees to use. I'm guessing that will be one of them. Kind of hoping it is one of them, because I would like to... It would certainly make combat a lot better, because it would give us an extra rage builder for combat. Would be interesting for us. That is all for this video. So next video, I think we may take a look at the Juggernaut. We'll take a look at the Guardian Juggernaut, the big bad tank, the big bad Jedi tank that we got, big heavy armor Jedi tank. We'll take a look at that next time. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you soon, and goodbye.